You turn on a tap. Water comes out. You don't think about it. You don't thank it. You just fill a glass and walk away. But the real answer is far stranger. There was a stretch of time, deep in your species' past, when water almost didn't come. Not for a season, not for a year. For thousands of years at a time, the rain that ancient humans depended on simply stopped arriving in any reliable way. And entire regions of Africa dried into dust. Lakes that had fed generations vanished. Rivers that carved valleys turned to cracked mud. And the humans who lived through it were pushed to the edge of extinction, again and again, long before anyone wrote a single word about it. Geneticists studying human DNA have found something strange hiding in your genome. Compared to almost any other mammal on Earth, humans have remarkably little genetic diversity. Chimpanzees, who live only in small patches of Africa, carry more genetic variation among themselves than the entire human species does across all 7 continents. Researchers like Rebecca Cann, who helped pioneer the study of mitochondrial DNA passed down through mothers, traced this pattern back to a population bottleneck. At some point, the number of humans on the planet dropped so low that we came close to disappearing completely. Why? The leading explanation points to drought. Around 195,000 to 123,000 years ago, a period climate scientists call marine isotope stage 6, much of Africa entered a mega-drought that lasted for tens of thousands of years. Lakes that once stretched for miles shrank to nothing. Grasslands that had fed generations of animals and humans turned into desert. Entire populations of early Homo sapiens likely died out, region by region, unable to find enough water or food to survive. Some researchers, including archaeologist Stanley Ambrose, have pointed to an even more dramatic possibility layered on top of this. Around 74,000 years ago, a volcano called Toba, on the island of Sumatra, erupted with a force unmatched in the last 2 million years. Ambrose proposed that the ash and sulfur it threw into the atmosphere may have cooled the climate and deepened the droughts already choking parts of Africa, compressing an already fragile population even further. The theory remains debated among scientists, and newer evidence suggests some human groups weathered it better than once thought. But the broader picture holds regardless of Toba's exact role. Your ancestors lived through a stretch of climate chaos so severe that survival was never guaranteed. So how did any of us make it through? Archaeologist Curtis Marion spent years excavating a cave on the southern coast of South Africa called Pinnacle Point. What he found reshaped how scientists understand human survival. While the interior of the continent dried into an unlivable furnace, a narrow strip of coastline stayed just wet enough, just resource-rich enough to support small groups of humans. The ocean never fully failed. Marion's team uncovered thousands of shellfish remains, mussels and whelks pulled from tide pools, alongside evidence that these early humans were harvesting starchy underground plants called geophytes, bulbs, and tubers that survive drought by storing water and energy beneath the soil where the sun can't reach them. The coastline itself may explain why. The region around Pinnacle Point sits inside what botanists call the Cape Floristic region, one of the richest concentrations of plant diversity on the planet. A huge share of the plants there survive fire, drought, and poor soil by storing their energy underground in bulbs, corms, and tubers rather than above ground where dry heat and flame can destroy it. In a normal year, that underground pantry is simply part of the landscape. During a mega-drought, when almost everything above the soil has withered or burned, it becomes the difference between starvation and survival. Marion has argued that a handful of similar coastal pockets, small green refuges scattered along the edges of an otherwise dying continent, may be the reason Homo sapiens exists at all. Every person alive today may trace back to a tiny number of these tucked-away survivors. This is the part that should surprise you. The animals people usually picture when they imagine survival, the fastest, the strongest, the best hunters, weren't the ones who made it through this crisis. The humans who survived were the ones who understood where water and food hid when the surface of the world had nothing left to give. They learned to read tide charts written in moon phases. They learned which plants held swollen roots beneath dry, unpromising dirt. They learned to think below the ground, not just across it. Short sentence. Survival wasn't about power. It was about pattern recognition. Marian's excavations also turned up something else. Evidence that these coastal survivors were heat-treating stone to make sharper, more reliable tools, carefully controlling fire temperature in buried sand pits to transform ordinary rock into something closer to glass. That kind of patience, tending a fire for hours to improve a tool you hadn't even started making yet, is not the behavior of a species barely scraping by. It's evidence of planning stretched across time, the same mental skill that lets you save money today for a need you won't have until next year. There's another discovery that makes this even more vivid. At a site called Border Cave, near the border of South Africa and Eswatini, archaeologists uncovered ostrich eggshell fragments dating back roughly 60,000 years, deliberately shaped and marked, that researchers believe were used as portable water containers. Ostrich eggs are large, sealed, and naturally waterproof. Someone realized that an empty shell could be filled at a spring, plugged, and carried for days across dry land. This wasn't an accident. It was a technology, passed down carefully enough that the markings on different shells appear again and again across time, almost like a signature or a claim of ownership. Think about what that means. Somewhere in a drought-stricken landscape, a person figured out that an eggshell could become a canteen, and that idea became valuable enough to teach, to protect, and to pass on for generations. Water wasn't just found. It was carried, planned for, rationed. That single insight may have kept entire family groups alive long enough to reach the next spring, the next river, the next rain. You can still see fragments of this ancient knowledge today. Anthropologist Richard Lee spent years living alongside the Kungsan people of the Kalahari Desert in the 20th century, documenting how they survived in one of the driest environments on the planet. During the dry season, when open water can vanish entirely, the Kung dig for tsama melons and water-storing roots buried just beneath the surface, squeezing out enough moisture to survive weeks without a single visible water source. They know which plants signal buried water. They know how deep to dig, and where. Nearby, in Tanzania, the Hadza still track animals across dry plains by reading footprints, broken grass, and disturbed soil, following the same trail logic that once led thirsty ancestors to hidden waterholes long before any map existed. This knowledge isn't instinct. It's inherited memory, taught by one generation to the next, stretching back further than anyone can trace. Your own body still carries a quieter version of this same story. Humans have an unusually high number of sweat glands compared to other primates, and remarkably efficient kidneys that can concentrate urine to conserve water when supplies run low. Biologists studying human evolution, including researchers who focus on endurance and thermoregulation, point out that this combination let early humans travel farther across hot, dry landscapes than almost any other large mammal, chasing prey or searching for water long after a four-legged competitor would have collapsed from heat. Long before eggshell canteens or buried tubers, your body itself was already built as a drought survival tool. What does any of this have to do with you? You will probably never dig for a root to survive the week. You will probably never carve a water container out of a bird's egg. But the instinct underneath all of it is still running quietly inside you. It's why you fill a water bottle before a long trip even when you're not thirsty yet. It's why an empty fridge makes you uneasy in a way that feels bigger than hunger. It's why running out of something essential, water, food, money, time, triggers a kind of low-grade panic that seems out of proportion to the moment. That reaction isn't modern anxiety. It's an old alarm system, built across tens of thousands of years by ancestors who learned the hard way that scarcity doesn't announce itself before it arrives. Every time you stock a pantry, fill a tank, or feel a flicker of relief when you refill a glass of water, Some distant part of your brain is running the same calculation a person made at pinnacle point 200,000 years ago, staring at a dry horizon, wondering where the next source would be, and deciding to look below the surface instead of giving up. You turn on a tap, water comes out, you still don't think about it. But somewhere behind that small, ordinary motion is the reason you're here at all. A species that almost vanished, saved not by strength, but by the quiet decision to keep looking for water in the places everyone else had stopped searching.